All right, let's talk about CNN and the all-out war that is about to unfold between Chris Cuomo, the newly fired anchor, the newly neutered anchor, and CNN's Jeff Zucker. Both sides right now are lawyering up and issuing back and forth statements. They've been sending out Brian Stelter all over the place, doing interviews. He's been on the Stephen Colbert show. He's done interviews where he's talked about internal dissent at CNN and how there are people that really thought that, that Cuomo should have been fired earlier, but then others were saying that he should be supportive. Now back and forth, these two are basically hiring and getting on top of all these different lawyers. And there are reports that a massive lawsuit to the tune of $18 million could be coming very soon from Chris Cuomo's team against CNN, basically saying that he is owed 4 years of the rest of his contract. And furthermore, that CNN knew exactly what those text messages were about, his relationship with the governor's office, and that they were complicit in this cover-up.
Okay. Interestingly, the head of CNN, Jeff Zucker, has said that, this is new to me. We didn't know Chris Cuomo had done these unconscionable things, so we fired them because we found out, right?
Right.
And when he was asked, he said that Chris Cuomo did not get a severance package, which is kind of interesting in these days of downfall of the media. If you recall the Roger Ailes scandal, the Bill O'Reilly scandal, both of them were accused of egregious sexual misconduct, and both of them got massive severance packages to walk away. Now, if you kind of read the tea leaves about that, it would seem that taking a severance package is sort of like a settlement deal. You sign it under a certain terms that say you won't disparage the network, you won't talk about the terms of your departure, right? And so when those anchors accepted executives and anchors accepted that money, they could not then go back around and accuse Fox of having known what they did, right? This did not happen. Chris Cuomo got nothing. He was just out, right?
Right.
And for that reason, now he can fight in public. And so it's interesting. Because
he didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement, an anti-disparagement agreement.
If they didn't pay him a settlement, he has no reason to sign anything of the sort. So he can go in and say whatever he wants. Now, a lawsuit like this would be very uncomfortable for him because but in discovery, if he's going to say, the network knew what I did, they only pretended they didn't know when things got public, that's very provable.
Right.
He could then prove all of these messages and internal documents and conversations with Jeff Zucker and human resources and yada, 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 yada. And if CNN is shown that they did know it, which I think probably, my opinion is 5,000% they knew. And then they just, when it became public, pretended they didn't and then kicked him to the curb.
Curb.
Sorry.
Curb your enthusiasm.
You don't kick someone to the curb.
Should I read the statements here? Should I read the statements from CNN and then the one from Chris Cuomo?
Sure, read the statements.
So the situation has become quickly acrimonious, and here is the dueling statements from CNN and Cuomo's personal spokesperson, who said that Zucker and his client were, quote, widely known to be extremely close and in regular contact, including about the details of Mr. Cuomo's support for his brother. There were no secrets about this, as other individuals besides Mr. Cuomo can attest. CNN then hit back with their own response, which said, "We are disappointed with Chris's statement. He's made a number of accusations that are patently false. This reinforces why he was terminated for violating our standards and practices, as well as his lack of candor." So, Chris, what makes this sort of lack of daylight between these two accounts here, as Vanity Fair points out, one person familiar with Zucker and Cuomo's conversations said, Chris believes he was transparent about what he was doing and what Jeff needed to know. But another person says internally that basically the most damning stuff was from these Melissa DeRosa text messages, Andrew Cuomo's top lieutenant, and that those things only came out later. So, does he know about it or not?
So we know some people who have anchor jobs or have had marquee anchor jobs at CNN, former colleagues of ours, who absolutely were chummy with Jeff Zucker and said, I can text him whenever I want. I'm close to him, right?
Right.
And so I believe he does keep personal relationships, especially with his marquee anchors.
Yeah, he
and
was
there
his
was
favorite.
no one more marquee than Chris Cuomo. That's point number one. And point number two, if you're Jeff Zucker and you know the news is that your star's brother is in big trouble, you're going to ask the star, what's going on about this? What should we do? What do you know? You're going to say, this is how you need to handle this. You're going to talk about it. It's not like this is something Jeff Zucker did not advise about, did not think about. If so, he's the dumbest person ever. And he's not a dumb person. I don't think so. So the sort of like, I didn't know what route he was taking on his own very public personal crisis,
right,
even though he's my star, is total.
Yeah, it's garbage. Right. I mean, we're seeing right through it. But this just speaks to this this hypocrisy, right? So then CNN is having Andrew Cuomo, Governor Andrew Cuomo, on the show on a regular basis was absolutely a violation of their own internal policy. Like, according to their own handbook, their own internal handbook, this was a violation of their own policies. And then they allowed it to further continue to happen. Why? Because it was huge ratings for them. Again, money. And they want to pretend like this wasn't it. I got to tell you, like in this week of all of these companies focusing on money over people, you know, you see like the World Tennis, the Women's Tennis Association coming out saying, we're going to protect our people over money. Like, it's such a rare item. Like, we're like, oh my God, did they really just do that to protect Peng Shui? And you have these big companies that are time and time again making sure that they can do these interviews. They can put on Andrew Cuomo with his brother. They did these chummy segments where, I think we showed it here on the show, where because they were making fun of Governor Cuomo's big nose, that his younger brother brought a giant Q-tip, like they were going to swab him, you know, because of the COVID test. And
That is stupid and gross.
he brought props, they were literally playing this game. But they knew it was huge ratings. So of course, and they promote it tonight. The Governor Cuomo of New York is going to be on the.
They Cuomo'd it.
They Cuomo'd it. They Cuomo'd it. They promoted the Cuomo. Is that what I said? They Cuomo'd it?
No, but I wanted to make a pun.
So what's next for Chris Cuomo other than this massive lawsuit that seems to be coming, and how chummy they were? Did Jeff Zucker know about this? As you said, it's easy to prove, right? Were there text messages? Clearly there were. If we already know these text messages from the State Attorney General's office, there's got to be text messages.
Okay, let me just tell you what's going to happen, because they don't want a trial that's public where these types of things become, you know, where and then, you know what would be public in this? They would have to produce any correspondence between these two guys, Jeff Zucker and Cuomo, any correspondence specifically about this familial relationship, any correspondence with human resources, and you would see all kinds of compromising decisions that both of them made on both sides against what is taught in journalism school. So what will happen is maybe he will file this lawsuit because it looks like a big boy move and like you're swinging a big stick. They'll settle it confidentially, and then they won't be able to talk about it anymore because there's no way they're going to show us in a trial how dirty they are. Yeah.
Discovery phase through this. The discovery phase through any kind of legal battle is always dirty. And the reason it's dirty is because the prosecutors will try to put tentacles out, or for the plaintiff's attorneys will try to put tentacles into everything. Things that are totally unrelated. But who's to say that it's unrelated? You have to wait till a judge says that this piece of discovery is related or not related, and then they'll be able to pull it back to just the relationship between him and his governor.
But even like an empathetic type text, right? Let's say, Clayton, you had a brother who was touching ladies, right? And then you were, as a journalist, and I'm your boss, even saying like, I'm so sorry this is happening. I'm so, like, any of that. You can't get involved in any of it. Certainly they did not keep this. Again, I think if it were a lower level production assistant, it might have been a different story. But because he was the star, so many rules were bent.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next for Chris Cuomo? He tweeted about his SiriusXM show. He says, I left CNN. That means that I will no longer be doing my SiriusXM radio show. I'm extremely grateful for the support I have received from SiriusXM. I also want to express my sincere appreciation for my loyal listeners. I will miss our conversations a great deal, but look forward to being back in touch with you all in the future. So,
podcast.
Well, people are saying, will he start his own show like Megyn Kelly did on YouTube, which has been really
Of course he will.
successful. So he can go and tap into his own audience there.
And then there's no
Jeff Zucker to
there's
tell him
no
not to.
rules. There's no
There'll just be a YouTube to tell you what stories you can and cannot cover, like
Right.
and demonetize you when you do that. Anyway, interesting. That's the update from CNN and the Chris Cuomo lawsuit.